Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here. And so before I start with my talk, I just quickly want to see how many of you have heard about ArcGIS Urban. And I think it's going to be a few. So who has never heard of ArcGIS Urban and doesn't know what it is? Wow, OK. Awesome, everyone has heard about it. OK, cool, that's great. I'm anyway going to just give you a quick introduction into what it is, and also especially how it relates to CityEngine and how we integrate it. And I'm also happy to be able to show a quick demo on how this is going to work. And so yeah, let's just get started. So ArcGIS Urban is our new 3D web-based tool to support urban planning workflows. And so it's on the web, it's easy and intuitive to use. And it allows the collaboration between many different stakeholders. So I think we've heard in previous presentations today already that there's very frequently we have this problem that there's a lot of people involved in the urban planning process, a lot of different stakeholders. Not everyone has access to all those technologies. Not everyone has CityEngine at home and can just start up a plan and look at it and so on. So there's already solutions out there to solve that problem, right, to bring it into the web and so on. And so we thought we want to expand that. We want to make that even easier for stakeholders to get access to those plans, scenarios, and so on, to really be able to involve them early on, to bring in stakeholders that are important from the beginning and not when the last rendering is finished and then you talk to them and they're like, oh no, I'd like to change something, and then you have to go back to the start. So this is kind of one of the goals of this platform. So to summarize that, it's really meant to be for collaboration and transparency, to be a common platform to exchange all sort of information between stakeholders in the urban planning process throughout different levels, from the land use over all the urban planning involved process, the zoning especially, all the way down to the project lifecycle, bringing in all this external data as well. So what is part of ArcGIS Urban? So I said it's a web tool, and we talk about the ArcGIS Urban elements. So there's 4 of them. And I'll just quickly show you all of them, but then just dive into the 2 main ones. So we talk about plans in ArcGIS Urban when we talk about long-range planning up to 10 to 50 years, really the future of a city. What do we have to consider? How many more people are going to live in a city? It's usually more like widespread, so we don't focus on one parcel, but it's more like a larger area. This is when we talk about plans, this is what we mean in ArcGIS Urban. On the other hand, we have the projects. The projects are more like one parcel, and it will be redeveloped in the next 2 to 5 years. It's already quite clear what's going to happen. So it's not so much about capacity, assumptions, and so on, so more like the kind of actually the construction process. And then 2 other elements. One of them is indicators, bringing in all this additional information, can be just visual, contextual information, but also visualizing those capacities on a large area. And the last one is ideas, getting feedback from citizens or stakeholders. So those are the 4 main ones. But because CityEngine is tying in at the moment, mainly into plans and projects, I want to focus a little bit more on those. So with ArcGIS Urban, you basically have this bucket of all your plans and projects in the whole city. So not just one plan that you're working on or one project, but you see this overview over the city. And I think this is one of the strengths, because we're in the web. We can stream that data, we can show it on a large scale. And we can also observe the change, we can track projects and so on, which is a huge challenge nowadays with cities evolving so quickly, changing all the time, and have to adapt to future needs. So this is an example of a project. It's one of our early adopters in Boston. So here you see this one building here in the middle, and then just as a reference, this is the larger scale, one of the plans, also in Boston, together with some capacity indicators that we can also calculate within urban to roughly see what that means for capacities, just to give you an idea how this looks like. I'll also show this quickly afterwards. So I've talked about this ArcGIS Urban being a platform for all the stakeholders, and basically what that means is that we want to build up this urban database where all the parcels, the zoning, the plans, the project live, and then different applications, different clients can have access to those data sets, can be shared with different stakeholders, and this is what you see here in the middle. This is meant to have all the existing data, but also all the design scenarios and so on, and they can be consumed by both the ArcGIS Urban web-based client, but also, for example, by CityEngine, by ArcGIS Pro, or any other solutions that want to make use of this data. So it's really where everything comes together and can use this data for further analysis. Just quickly, what is behind? So we have two different versions of ArcGIS Urban from the client side. There's an internal one where you really make your designs, where you have it internally in your urban planning team. And then there's an external one where you can share with citizens, with all the stakeholders, what you're ready to share. So it's really, those two are two different data sets. And where we host the data at the moment, if you're familiar with the Esri platform, this is on ArcGIS Online at the moment, so it's really feature services. And then we use the ArcGIS API for JavaScript for the displaying of the 3D data, as well as the REST API for editing. And then, interesting for you guys, is that we're using the same procedural runtime core as CityEngine uses, so the power there behind is the same. So this we're also sharing to create plausible building forms that I'm going to show later on. So now maybe you're wondering, CityEngine, ArcGIS Urban, how do the two work together? So that's also the title of this presentation. So in general, it's really one love. So you probably also know that, so the ArcGIS Urban team is also located here in Zurich. The CityEngine team is located here in Zurich. The development is taking place in the same office, so we work very tightly together to make both products better. And I do really think that Urban really benefits, I mean, of course, because of all the core technology from CityEngine, but also from all the feedback from users, from all those things that we've learned over the years with CityEngine. It evolved essentially from all of you guys' stories, from all the user stories. We saw all those pain points, like what is not working, like all this, what also you mentioned with the 1 square kilometer, and then you're basically done. You cannot really render more than that. So bringing that to the web also means we can use streaming technology, make stuff faster and so on. And then on the other hand, I also believe that CityEngine can profit a lot from having this common platform where also other people can use the data from CityEngine and coming from CityEngine into Urban. So it's really something that there's a lot of also development going on between the two products and between the two teams, and we're super excited about this, and we're also super happy to hear from you guys what you think about Urban, where do you see potential, and so on. So one of the things that Urban is, I'd say, strong in is to very quickly iterate over quick designs, over plausibility, or more like kind of feasibility studies of those massing models that you see here in the background. So those are, we call them plausible buildings. So they're more like what is possible when you take the zoning together with what does this mean now for some of the numbers. So similar to the reports in CityEngine, we also have those basic things in here, together with some of the parameters from the zoning and so on. And you can very quickly create different types of scenarios just to see how does it feel and which of the scenarios are meeting, my targets that I have for a larger plan and which ones are not. So it's really a tool to quickly sketch out, even together with stakeholders, or let stakeholders make those different scenarios. And as a next step then, it can be shared with other people easily. So very similar to how you know it from the CityEngine web scenes. So same concept there also with the scenarios. You can flip through different types of scenarios and see those differences, compare them, discuss it with stakeholders, compare to all the surroundings, and so on. CityEngine, on the other side, is really the sketching tool, the drawing tool, the detailed design. We can go in and plant those trees and put those facades and make it really nice and realistic, and have all those tools in CityEngine, apply our custom rules, do some further calculations, such as we've also worked on an edge calculation, so figure out on a parcel which is the front, rear edge, and so on. And then, so this is kind of the two products, and now how do they integrate? So it works like that in CityEngine you can connect to Urban, and that doesn't work, and you can open a plan or a project in CityEngine having the same data connected to the same services, and then after you made your changes, you can synchronize it back to Urban and have your CityEngine models in Urban being able to show it to anyone, and so on. So let's see how that works. So I'm gonna quickly go into ArcGIS Urban. So this is actually a bit of an earlier version, so we've already updated the app and it looks nicer now. But what you see here is Boston, and you see all those plans and projects with the little pins here. We can also go into a list and see those projects, and this is just a test data set for me. But what I did here, I made one plan here, the Dorchester Avenue plan. It's also what you saw on the slides. And when I go in here, it loads all of my models here, and I can flip through different scenarios very quickly, depending on the internet connection. There you go. So you see I can switch between different scenarios back and forth. I can navigate. I can see it together with other plans. I can quickly go to another plan or a project. And we've worked a lot with early adopters on this, and I just quickly, because we have 2 early adopters in the room, I had to decide which one to show just quickly. We also had, we worked together with the city of Zurich, and some of their planners, they've also designed some plans. So this is whereas you see here, the external view that also citizens could look at. It's what you want to share with the public. Is this is the design view of it. So you can see those massing models here, and as well as the capacity indicators. And what we work with is something that also other people have talked in other presentations with, so-called building types or building typologies. And they're more like what types of uses are in those buildings. So for example, here I have a building with 2 floors of retail and then office at the top, and I can, for example, change that, and maybe I have my own building type configured. I want to have a more residential building here, so I can quickly change this underneath and see how my indicators update as well. So when I flip through my scenarios, I can also see how the indicators are changing here on the side, and I can very quickly make scenarios like that. So, and now let's go into CityEngine for that Boston example that I showed before. And you can see here I have a couple of scenarios in here. I've also loaded them here in CityEngine, and what we can do is we can connect to Urban and then download a plan or a project and open it here in Urban. I've already done this for this one here. And now in CityEngine, what's super cool, what I can do in here is I can go in and change some of those models. I can do my own sketches. Maybe I want to add another tower in here. So we've also heard a lot of people work with SketchUp still to do the sketching. So I really like to sketch in CityEngine and just go in here, add another tower. I can see my model updating here on the side right away. So this is how I can quickly go in and change my scenario. And now I want to bring it back to urban. So I select here my models, and I can go into those new functionality now in the new CityEngine version, and I can publish my scenario to urban. So now when this runs, it tells me it already has a scenario. If I'm sure I want to override it, I am. And it will create a scene layer now and attach it to that scenario. So let's wait until this is finished. It's the same as, you know, from the CityEngine web scene, works the same way. We just create a scene layer now here. And now if I go back to the Get Project Plan, I could also open it just in a web browser. You can see that I can open ArcGIS Urban within CityEngine. It will connect to the same feature services. I have the same or similar functionality here. I can see that I have the same plan in here. Now let's go into that plan. And maybe you remember what I changed here. I added this little thingy in scenario 4. And now, I'm always getting confused with the commands. It's already here. So it's very fast to update the scenarios. I can very quickly bring my data from CityEngine into ArcGIS Urban and then use it further from there. So, all right. So that's it from a little demo. So just as a quick recap for the integration, what has already been done that I just showed now is that we can already bring in plans and project from urban into CityEngine. So that was the first step. And we can also synchronize scenarios. So when you know the scenario concept in CityEngine works the same, when I add a scenario in CityEngine, it will also be added to the feature service, which means that it's also in ArcGIS Urban. So this already works now, also the publishing of models and attaching it to scenarios. And of course, we're going to work on making this integration even better in the future to have everything work as expected, to tie it together with the indicators and so on. So this is what we're working on together with both teams. And one of the main reasons also to connect for people to not just use urban is, of course, the power of CityEngine is really that you can bring in all sort of 3D data into your app, into CityEngine, and then bring it into urban or do whatever with it. So that's one part. And then from CityEngine, when you have it in there, of course, you can also bring in other 2D data, but especially then from CityEngine, you can use it to export to other formats, to other 3D formats. And then very exciting as well, where we also work together with our colleagues here in Zurich to bring into VR. We've seen that some people are already adapting the VR, the tabletop experience. We're also working on improving that, still work in progress, but this is kind of like beyond CityEngine. There's a whole new world that opens up when you connect all of those things together. And I think Simon and my colleagues will also talk a little bit more about that afterwards. And with that, I'm already at the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, let me know if you like to know any more details. And yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Do you have any questions right now? Great. That's pretty cool. I'm trying to understand what are exactly maybe I missed a couple of things. So, for example, are there sliders in this people change things using import sliders from CityEngine?
No, there's no slider. So it's not. So we have an inspector where you can see attributes, but it's not it's not like you can change the rule that is behind. You can change the attributes depending on the building types and the zoning that is underlying, but there's no slider functionality in that sense, no. Not yet. So right now, it's the rule is fixed as it is in urban. So if you have your custom rules, that's really where you have to take it, bring it into CityEngine and use your own rules. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you possibly outline what's the major difference or advantage of this interface over the web scenes?
Over the CityEngine web scenes. Have you been using CityEngine web scenes with very large areas? No. So if you would want to take in, let's say, Zurich is not a very large city, but I know that the city of Zurich has tried to attempt to take in the whole city into CityEngine web scenes, and one of the problems is that because it's not streaming, it's actually caching the data. So with this tool, we can stream it. So it's on a feature service that lays in ArcGIS Online, so we can stream the data and we can display very large areas. So we have early adopters that show a whole county in the US, for example. They have multiple cities and they are all on the same tool, using the same services, displaying a lot of data at the same time. Yeah.
Hi. So when you bring in the models into CityEngine and when you bring it back to urban, does it do the calculations?
Not yet, no. You mean for the indicators? Yes. Yeah, no. But that's something that we're working on. Yeah. More questions? Yeah.
I'm very excited about this exchange of urban and CityEngine. It's really great. One thing I often see with discussions with customers, the usage of the building. So if you're in urban, I can have these scenarios and can work with the usage of the building. What about if I create some new buildings in CityEngine? I'm starting to sketch them. Can I have the usage also then afterwards in urban, that I have it on the dashboard? So,
as said, it's not possible yet, but that's also something that we know that this is something that that's a requirement, and that makes sense. It is because the usage is in the service, so we can access it. Technically, it's possible to access it from CityEngine as well. So there, I'm not sure. Like, I have to be careful what I'm saying, but it's on the roadmap. It's something that we started thinking about, and yeah, so. All of those things, yeah, it's really a first step. So what I showed today is really and so we'll try to improve this along the road, and we're super happy with, like, if you have requirements, please let us know. Yeah, yeah.
You showed the BIM data also at the end.
Yeah, sorry?
Yeah, you showed the BIM also integrating.
So,
if I put a lot of textures into ArcGIS Urban, that's slow.
What do you think? how many textures are we talking?
I'm just talking about a city, so let's say if I have 50 buildings with textures.
Then that should work. 50 buildings I mean, it always depends on the textures, right? Of course, you have to improve them for performance, as you have to do in other tools as well. But this will also evolve and then get better with time, that we can load more textures.
Say, for example, if I have a Revit model, I can take it to ArcGIS Urban.
Yeah, you can do that, yeah. Yeah. More questions? Yeah.
Is it also working with networks, line networks, polygons?
We don't have that yet. So talking about streets and stuff, you mean, yeah. So this is also something that we're thinking about, but it's not in there yet. At the moment, we're using parcels and zoning as polygons, as well as the building they have the floors, and so on. So it's all polygon based at the moment. But we're thinking about streets and mobility as well, but not yet in there.
Already using web scenes which are not caching, uploading and streaming the data. Why should I buy Urban? What's the plus?
So I've tried to explain this a little bit also before. So this is really, ArcGIS Urban is really targeted at the moment towards cities, right? So cities that have not just one project, but they have like hundreds or like thousands of plans and projects they need to plan for the future. They need to make sure that they have enough apartments for all their residents that might be living there in 20, 30 years. So this is really the workflow that we're supporting right now, is cities that have zoning laws that will change over time. They have to adapt to future needs. So this is kind of the target at the moment. So I'm not sure like where you are in this whole story, and maybe there's also other people more from the marketing side that can tell you. But so yeah, that's basically where you have the big plus. You have this database of plans and projects. You have an overview over the city, and then as someone working with cities, of course, you potentially have the option to use the existing data, kind of just cut out the part you need for a plan or a project. So this is an opportunity to easily access the data for a city, if the city wants to make this available, of course. And then work with their zoning codes that are already in there, the parameters and so on, making sure that your buildings fit the zoning requirements and so on. So so that's kind of the plus. Yeah.
I got a question regarding modeling from the CityEngine side. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on so some time ago there was basically a footprint-based rule system implemented in Urban, and now what in the demo that you showed, you're actually using a volumetric rule to basically create the floor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's, yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit on which rule or which approach you guys are following up on now on what's supported on the CityEngine side and on the Urban side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into detail there. The reason why we have floors at the moment is sort of a limitation of the platform, that we're waiting on something. So it's a workaround. I don't think this will stay like this for the future. It is like that at the moment, but it's also at the moment, so I brought in those buildings basically manual, so that's also another part. Like the thing is, if you create something in CityEngine, you have those models. What we do then to attach it to the scenarios is we upload them as scene layers to ArcGIS Online and attach them to the scenarios. So that's kind of the way you bring in the models at the moment. So they're actually at the moment not connected to the floors or anything like that. But that's a goal for the future that is on the roadmap, that this will also be nicer integrated in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, in the old days, there was the geodesign workflow, GeoPlanner, So it seems to me that GeoPlanner is taking over.
So GeoPlanner has a different target workflow. So GeoPlanner is more for regional planning, very large areas where you have land use. And in GeoPlanner, they look mainly at 2D data at the moment. So this is where we step it up with urban, but we're also more focused on the urban areas and like the city scale, I would say. So there, it's kind of two different target workflows. If that at some point evolves into the same, so we've had requirements to support some of the functionality of GeoPlanner in urban and so on. I don't know, I cannot talk about that, but at the moment it's two different things and they coexist at the moment. And with the option, because urban has this database approach, so we have like a fixed data model that other tools such as CityEngine can plug in and use and so on, with the option to integrate as well in the future, I would say. Okay.
Okay, thank you for now. So, are you joining us for the dinner?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
So whoever has more questions, try to get a seat next to you. So
Yeah.